I am delighted today to be here with Preet Marwaha, a colleague, a friend, and a superstar when it comes to food and nutrition, and how do we actually deeply nourish ourselves. As you know, November is Brain Month, at least that's what I've chosen to make it. And so today we're looking at how do we feed our brain, and what does that really mean? Before we get into the specifics of that, Preet, I just want people to know a little bit about you because your background is so diverse, the areas you've worked in, and your interests. From being a VIP chef, obviously a teacher in terms of nutrition and so on, speaking at the UN, being involved in projects of how we have quality, sustainable food, from working with seniors and how to help their brains as well as children, working with schools. Preet's very involved with how do we start to really give kids quality information about the food they're eating and how their bodies work, and most specifically, I think, the brain. So there's kind of several things I want you to talk about because I think, number one, there's tons of misconceptions about what it even means to feed the brain. Number two, what should we be doing, and the don'ts. And I know you'll weave those all together, so take it away.
All right, well, awesome. Thank you for having me here, Lynn. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you. So much fun. You know, it's interesting, we talk about the brain, and there's so much that we do in our lives, whether it's in schools, our personal lives, at home, work, doesn't matter, that is about being healthier. Yeah. We'll exercise, we'll do yoga, we'll go to the gym, we'll do all these things, we'll do spas and so forth, yet nobody ever thinks about the brain. Yeah. Like, how do I take care of this thing up here? How do I nourish it? How do I understand it? So for me, the work that I'm doing in the schools, I think is just it's the groundswell of how we're going to ensure that as these kids grow up, they have healthy brains. Because without a healthy brain, we're not going to have healthy lifestyles. No. We're not going to have healthy anything. So let's start with the basics of the brain without getting medical and technical, all those things. The brain is 2% of our body. And that's always the most important thing I like people to understand. It's 2%. So you think about your body, and 2% is a very small number. Very. This 2%, though, utilizes a quarter of all of the resources of your body. Wow, a quarter. So if you start doing the math around that, it's like you've got 2% here that uses like a quarter of everything you put into your body. Starting with oxygen. Now, oxygen is something we don't even think about as a nutrient. Because we just innately, we walk around, we breathe, and it's something we don't think about. The brain utilizes over 25% of all the oxygen we take in goes to the brain. Just to brain? Simply to the brain. So when we think about when we don't breathe enough and how many times in a day we catch ourselves yawning, right? Yawning is a trigger from the brain going, hello, I need more oxygen. Yeah. So we take in big, deep breaths and we bring in oxygen. When we don't have enough oxygen, the first thing that suffers is the brain. Yeah. Our capacity to think clearly, to function and so forth, all starts to diminish because we don't have enough oxygen. And I think so often we don't even notice that we're diminishing. We think we're still operating at full capacity. Right. Yeah. Right. So oxygen is the first and foremost thing that we need to understand the brain requires. Not only the brain, of course, obviously the rest of our body, but it's a quarter of it goes to the brain. The second is our energy, which is glucose. So again, a quarter or a little bit more than a quarter of all the glucose that our body generates or we bring in goes to the brain. Okay. So the brain uses so much energy. And again, when we have what we call our sort of low blood sugar things and so forth, a lot of it is the brain isn't getting enough nutrients. It's not getting enough energy. So when you say glucose, immediately alarm goes off for me because, oh my God, people are thinking sugar and glucose and so on. So we're going to get into that. Absolutely, too, right? Absolutely. Differentiate between sugar and food that creates glucose or provides glucose. Glucose is the basic nutrient. Yes. All right. Yeah, absolutely. So those are really the two biggest things that the body utilizes a lot of. The next thing is we think about the blood that flows to our body. We all think about cardio health and the blood and for our muscles and so forth. what we don't realize is 15% of all of the blood that our heart pumps out is for the brain. So 15%. These are big numbers, right? 25, 25, 15. And all of a sudden you start to realize how much the brain actually requires to function on a moment-to-moment basis.
Gotcha.
Right? And then we think about, there's so much that goes on in the brain, the processes that happen, the neurotransmitters, the neurons, all this stuff we need to keep healthy. We need to keep functioning properly. And without proper nutrients, it's not happening. And then the big one is rest.
My favorite.
We don't give our brain and our bodies enough rest, especially in today's day and age. We see it with kids, I see it with adults. I was walking down the street yesterday, and I was like, everybody I'm looking around is just, they're so engaged doing this. They don't know what's going on around them. People just walk through crosswalks and so forth without realizing that, hang on a sec, am I actually paying attention to what's going on?
Right.
So that constant engagement of the brain, in ways, yes, it's good because it allows us to keep the brain functioning and healthy and thinking. The other side of it is, it also needs to rest. If you imagine you took a muscle and you took your arm and all you did was do this all day long, well, eventually your arm's going to start to get tired, right? After an hour of this, maybe after 15 minutes, it's going to be like, you're going to have a hard time getting your arm up until you rest it.
Right.
And then you get provided the nutrients for it to recover. The brain operates the same way. So oxygen, glucose, blood that flows to it, rest, these are really critical things that we need to understand as the foundation of how do we nourish the brain.
Okay. So now let's go into what is the nutrients then that we need.
Right. So water, and again, we laugh, right? Because
we do.
So many people think, oh yeah, water. It's like kind of like oxygen, right?
Yeah.
We just disregard water. And 98% of all the molecules in our body are made up of water. 98%. So it's not this 70%, 80% of our body is water. That's great, but 98% of the molecules are water. Okay. So you think about how much water our body actually needs to function. And again, when you don't have enough water in your body, the interesting thing that happens is we think about water, hydration, and so forth, right?
Yes.
What's more important than that is communication. So most of what happens in our body, particularly the brain, is electrical impulses.
Right.
That's how everything communicates, right? Well, water happens to be one of the best conductors of electricity.
True.
Right? We've all seen the cartoons or the movies. Somebody's sitting in a bathtub, you drop a hairdryer, the person gets electrocuted. Water is an amazing conductor of electricity.
Right.
So the more water we have in our body, the more conductivity we have, the more communication that happens. It happens better, faster, all of these things. Water. Okay. So let's start with that. That's the foundation. Drink,
How much?
3 liters of water is what the average active adult needs to put in their body every day.
Okay. 3 liters.
Yes.
Okay.
Not this 8 glasses, because we've set that as a benchmark, and people are like, oh, that's the max. Very few people even get to half that.
Does it matter if we have it spaced out or all in like glug, glug, glug?
No, you don't want to glug, glug, glug. Your body needs water throughout the day, right?
Right.
It's kind of like oxygen. You can't just take it all in.
Right.
You got to keep breathing it, keep drinking it. So throughout the day, drink water.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Well,
Keep going. I'm already knowing we're going to be short on time. I can tell we want to fit in as many.
Yeah.
So water. What else?
The next one is, so we talk about energy, which is glucose, right? So let's talk about the foods that allow the body to create, glucose.
Right.
That is fuel as opposed to sugar. It's
Right.
2 different things, right?
Okay.
So fruits and vegetables and things like whole grains, those are all really good carbohydrates. So when we talk about a carbohydrate, we're talking about whole food, not processed, breads and cookies and muffins and cakes and donuts and chocolate bars, pops, etc. None of that stuff counts as fuel.
Okay.
That is processed sugar that actually damages the brain. So we're going to talk about right after this, how do we prevent the brain from being damaged? Well, those kind of foods cause the damage. So eat lots of fruits, lots of fresh vegetables, lots of whole grains, things that grow out of the ground. There's some essential nutrients that come out of the ground like magnesium and selenium, which are very critical for brain health, and we need to ensure that we get those in good ways.
Okay.
And then some nuts and seeds that are really critical for brain health, starting with hemp seeds. Hemp seeds provide you the perfect balance of omega-3, omega-6 that is required for not only overall body function, particularly for the brain, Great source of magnesium as
Okay.
well. So hemp seeds are fantastic. Sesame seeds are great. Walnuts are really good. One Brazil nut a day gets you your selenium. So these are some simple foods that we can incorporate into our diet that will help nourish the brain.
Okay, so it's just like TV, Preet. We're going to have to take a break here.
Absolutely.
I know we're going to do part 2 of this and get into more of the myths and the errors in our thinking and a little more depth on what's going to nourish us. So thank you. We'll stop there and
Awesome. Thank
take
you. It's
up
a pleasure.
Part 2.
Thank you.